I actually for the very first time used the term Youzign school when I made the announcement that we were going to go live in an hour. And so Elle has been calling this Youzign school for a long, long time. I really appreciate that. It's pretty cool. Fulfilling for me because I'm an old school teacher. So it makes me feel good to think that I at least hold class for 1 hour a week. So cool. Thank you for that, Elle. All right, this is an interesting picture that I have up behind the weekly training. I spent a couple of different times in my life. I've spent in what's called Gold Country in Montana, and actually I've actually seen an operation just exactly like the one that's here. I've seen the remnants of an operation, and so that's going to be part of the inspiration for today's webinar. Will be what you see in the background of this picture here. So no, I'm not in the picture. I know what you were referring to. You said on the picture, but yeah, I'm not in that picture, but I'm actually kind of glad. So cool. Yeah, you'd have to bring that up, wouldn't you? I still love you, but you know, it's only so much I can do. I'm just the goodwill ambassador, but that's all I am. All right, let's get started here. Let's get started. We're going to jump into the basics this morning. I've updated this just a little bit. Today we're going to cover Youzign and Mockzign today. Obviously, I can't answer support questions. They have to go to support, and until Rose gets a little bit more stability in her world and her needs as a mother. The truth is that Rose's shift is over when we go live. So she has been just coming in and helping because she wants to, and she wants to be helpful to you. So she needs that time right now to be a mom. And so we appreciate what Rose is doing, but we're just going to have to address support questions to support. Now I do have some questions. I do have some answers for you this morning that might be helpful from support as we get ready to go into the webinar in just a minute. Your questions are extremely important, but they always need to relate to today's topic. And I've actually had people who've recorded the questions, and we've had a lot of those, and related them back to me to make sure that we were able to address them either in the webinar while we are live or later in the next webinar when we go live the next time. I want the webinar to be live and interactive. I want to be able to address your questions if they relate to the day's topic. Oftentimes the day's topic takes some research, it takes some work, it takes some preparation to put that together. And so we've got to make sure that it fits into the time frame that we have and the agenda that we have going on. This is not intended to be a tutorial. This is not going to be a step-by-step, this is exactly how you do this. Instead, this is a live and interactive webinar where we'll answer some of your questions, and we will take you down an interactive journey where it becomes a learning experience to help you to develop mastery and solving problems. Spence, good to see you this morning as well. All right. Having said that, I want to address something that I see happen all the time. Everybody's looking for that magic shortcut, that silver bullet, that whatever you want to describe it as, that's going to make life simple and easy for you. I'm a huge fan of making things as simple as they can be, but not more simple. But that doesn't mean that you remove any work and that you just click the mouse one time and money starts pouring into your PayPal account. That's not how it works. It's never going to work that way. And if it does, then the Girl Scouts will be doing it instead of selling cookies. Okay. I just wanted to share this with you this morning. Don't know who quoted this, don't know where it came from, but I just love it. Obstacles do not block the path. They are the path. And I think that's a great image to depict that. The obstacles are not blocking the path. They really become the path. And it's really important that we understand that. Oftentimes, the things that were in the way, when we found solutions to those, that solution became something that enabled me to be able to offer greater value to my clients than anybody else in the marketplace. If you figure out how to turn the obstacles into the path, people will pay you whatever they want, whatever your value is. Does that make sense to everybody? I think sometimes we fuss over the obstacles rather than turning them into the greatest path to your success that's possible. Absolutely, Francis, you have to have the obstacles in order to grow. You have to do that. And if you can learn to take the obstacles and turn them into the path, then it's amazing what happens in your life. So just a reminder, if you've got to write that down, please do. Whatever it is, just remember that the obstacles don't block the path, they are the path. And a good image here for that I found it in Pixabay, but it's a great image to depict that. Now let's talk about the Youzign group for just a little bit, and I want to share an experience with you. This is what Elle did as a result of last Friday's webinar, which is amazing. This looks incredibly great. I love this. Now let me share something with you. Yesterday, actually on Wednesday, I do a live coffee shop show from inside of a coffee shop here in town. And there was a guy in the coffee shop that stayed for the show on Wednesday and talked to me briefly afterwards, who owns the stained glass shop here in town. Just up the street, he walks down to the coffee shop, walks over to the post office, and then goes back to his stained glass shop. And I had never met him, and I got a chance to meet him on Wednesday. Yesterday, I went to his shop and I told him about our webinars, and I shared with him what we do in the webinar. And he said, I have been to art school twice. I went to art school. He's about my age. He said, I went to art school back in a much later day. We'll avoid the dates, but he said I went, early when your designs were drawn by hand. And he said, I was an artist, and that's what I did. And he said, then in the mid to late 90s, I decided I needed to go back to graphics design school. And he said, but in both of those experiences, I learned something. And what he shared with me is exactly what we watched happen with Elle's experience here as we walk through this process. He said we would bring there would be a day when we were all expected to bring our designs in. That's how many times have I asked you? How many times have I asked you to share your designs? Ask you to share your designs so that we can talk about them, so that we can learn from that. And that's the reason why I encourage you to do that. And Elle did that, and she did it more than a week ago. And then we took that, used it after all of you had given input and all of that. We took that and we took it and made it the topic of the day last Friday. And he said, the greatest learning experiences in my life were watching the things that would happen around the table. We'd sit around a round table and we would talk about each other's designs one at a time. And that's really kind of what we do in the group. And he said, it was so good. He said, it's scary when you do it the first time. And I've encouraged you all to share. And I do that because I want you to get past that fear of doing it for the first time to the point where you can do exactly what Elle did here. And that was, we went from the cover design to an amazing opportunity to be able to share that on social media to drive traffic and to drive potential sales to her book that she has published. And so I just thought that was great. And I agree with you, Gene. Watching her attitude and watching her grow in her skills is cool. But everybody in the group can do that. That's the point that I want to make. I've been fascinated watching Elle's development, but everybody else can do the same thing. We've watched Eric do that, and we've seen Gene, we've seen all kinds of people do that. And the whole point is that there's something incredible that happens in that group dynamic. And that's the thing that I want to share with you this morning, because I learned that yesterday as the guy at the stained glass shop said the great experiences I had, and he didn't let me go. I was there for an hour and a half. He kept saying, what do you think about this? And how do you like this? And what about that? And this is what we're doing over here. So any ideas? That ability to be able to share and to grow, amazing. It's amazing. I agree. 6,700 members and we have very few posts. There's something wrong. you know, I just want you to get past the fear of sharing, because there's something really magical that happens when you do. The next one I wanted to share with you, and we're going to move on quickly through this, is Bob shared this, and I thought it was really, really cool. This is a great video. I obviously can't play the video, but I would encourage you to go back and check that out in the group. Great example of being able to take the tools that are available to you and turn them into something that was really, really cool. He actually made a flickering Christmas tree effect. How cool is that? A flickering Christmas tree effect using the tools that he had available to him with Youzign and Youzign. So pretty amazing. How many of you have seen that video that Bob posted in the group? Anybody else? Wow. See, that's the reason why we do this. That's the reason why I try to encourage you to make that group active, make it valuable, enhance the value of it. As Elle said, the dynamics are incredible when it happens. And so I want to make sure to encourage you all to do that. It does twinkle, and it's pretty cool. I was just fascinated, but I played it several times for myself and then for my wife. Hello, Clee. Good to see you. Now, let me give you the updates that are here, okay? The first one is that there has been an issue with missing templates in Mockzign, and I will share with you a link in a little bit that will help you if you have downloaded the latest version of Mockzign and had an issue with the templates not showing up. Bertrand and I walked through a process the other day, and he actually created a blog post showing how to fix that issue. So that was pretty awesome. And that has been taken care of, and it's addressed. He's got the step-by-step process to do that. We ran into an issue that happened sometime yesterday, and that was that there were only 24 designs that were showing up. Now, you could do a search by name, and it would bring up, up to 24 designs that had that name on it. But that was a little bit limited, and I didn't want to have a limitation there. And we all of a sudden had that limitation that was there. As of this morning, that limitation has been removed. You should be able to see every design that you've ever saved in Youzign, and it should be available. So if you're not seeing it that way, then here's the steps that you do. The first thing that you do is you log out of the platform, clear your cache. And I showed you a couple of weeks ago how to do that. I was surprised how many people didn't know how to do that. But you clear your cache, log back in, and you shouldn't have any issue. When you have a browser-based program, and I remind you of this all the time, when you have a browser-based program, sometimes you have to clear the cache in order to get it to operate on the current script rather than on previous scripts that were happening, okay? So, Eric, I've had that issue myself. Eric says he was late because his brain wouldn't start. Had that problem before. All right. The next thing is I just want to walk you through this very simple problem-solving process, because 99% of what we do is we solve problems. And that's the reason for this quote right here, is because the problem is the obstacle. It's not blocking the path, it becomes the path. And so it's really important to know how to solve problems. When I was talking with the gentleman at the stained glass shop, I said the only skill I bring to the table here is I'm a problem solver. That's the skill that I bring to the table, is that I know how to solve problems. And most of what we do in this webinar is I teach you how to solve problems. But the most important thing is you have to love the outcome. You have to know what your outcome is. Unfortunately, I find people who fall in love with processes, they fall in love with tools, and they're not sure about the outcome. Now, I've seen twice this week, posted in the group and in other places, people who've quoted, begin with the end in mind. What that's saying is fall in love with the outcome. Know what you want. The reason why I picked this picture right here is not because these guys really enjoyed getting in that little bucket and being lowered into the ground there. That's not the reason why they did that. They did it because they were in search of gold, right? So they were willing to take whatever tools that they had and figure out how to get the outcome. And the outcome, in that case, was the gold. I spent several years in that part of the country, and I'm fascinated by how they would create the tools that they needed from the stuff that they had around them so that they could get the outcome. Instead of sitting around saying, if it would only do this, guess what they did? They made it do that so that they could get the outcome. So that they could get the outcome. And they were looking for something more. People packed up and moved from all over the world to come to Gold Country, Montana, so that they could get a better life, as Eric said. Totally agree with that. Fall in love with the outcome. Number two, learn to enjoy the process. Instead of fussing about what you don't have, enjoy the process of what you do. And when you do that, it frees your mind to be able to solve problems. When you're frustrated, you can't move forward. So if you learn to dump the frustration, then it's amazing how easily it is to achieve the outcome. So enjoy the process. Enjoy the process of discovering that the obstacle can become the path. Because when you do that, nothing will stand in your way. Enjoy the process. Then learn to use the tools that you have. If you'll learn to use the tools that you have, and you'll learn to master them, I'm like I've told you before, I'm in several groups, and in many of those groups, people will say, if it would only do this. And I'll say, if you have 15 seconds, I'll show you that it can. And I'm always amazed how many people don't know what they can do with what they have. They're not doing a very good job of learning to master their tools. I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute. And then I'm going to end with this one. This one's really important. When I was growing up, from the time I was about 12 till the time I was about 14, my dad would tell me every single day, don't be a goose. Now, in my family, there was nothing but monologues. Dad talked and I had to listen. So I never asked the question, what does it mean, don't be a goose? So one day, as I get older, I muster up the courage to ask. So, Dad, what do you mean when you say don't be a goose? And he said this, I wondered when you were going to ask. And he said, what it means is that a goose every day has to learn what it learned yesterday. Every day, a goose goes through the same process. Where's the food? Where's the water? How do I get out of the rain? Every day, a goose goes through that process. It never takes what it learned from one day and applies it to the next. And he said, don't be a goose. Be better than that. And I find way too many people who spend their lives like a goose. Don't be a goose. Now, let me give you a little tip, and I didn't intend to put this one in here, but let me give you a little tip. I have two Screencast-O-Matic accounts. One of them, the only thing I do in that Screencast-O-Matic account, the only thing I do in that account is that I answer questions, and I use them for to help people when they're having when they've got a question. I'll open that up and I'll make a brief video. On Thanksgiving evening at 5 o'clock, I did video number 1,000 in that group. And if you will learn to do this, I'm amazed at how much better my skills got. How much better my skills got when every time somebody would ask a question, I would open up a video monitor and I would go through the process. And I would go through the process step by step, because when you're making a process video for somebody else, or even if you're making it for you, it firmly plants that in your head and you never forget it. 80% of the questions that I answer in any group, I answer from my phone, not sitting in front of my computer. And I do it exclusively from memory, because my dad told me not to be a goose. I'm amazed how much video has helped me with that. All right. Thank you for all the comments. Let's move on. All right. And I'll give you one more example of this. Last week we talked about the background removal tool, and so I got to thinking after we were done, and I was looking at I saved this image from last week because I got to thinking about what we had talked about, and I rarely call that the background removal tool, but everybody else does. And the reason is because one day somebody asked the question, can we make a silhouette? And the answer is no, we don't have a silhouette making tool in Youzign. But I didn't like that answer. I had to give that answer on a Friday morning in a webinar, can we make a silhouette? And I didn't like the answer because that's the answer. If you were to ask anybody at Youzign, can we make a silhouette? They would say, no, we don't have a silhouette tool. I wasn't happy with that. And then I realized you can take the background removal tool and remove the foreground, and you can make a silhouette. And so I spent the weekend fiddling around. What's the fastest and easiest process to do this with? And I renamed that an erase tool. Now I have two pictures here. I have two graphic images here. One is a hammer, the other one is a screwdriver. And my cousin Tom and I were working on a house in Cody, Wyoming, and we're up on the roof, and a storm's coming. And when you can see a storm coming in Wyoming, you're in trouble. The wind's liable to get up to 85 miles an hour. It will blow houses off the ground, not just the roof. So we're up on top of this roof. We're trying to get done. We're trying to put in a skylight. Remember when skylights were popular? We're trying to put in a skylight. And I'm on one side of the skylight, and Tom's on the other side of the skylight. I said, Tom, I need a screwdriver. And he reaches in his tool belt and he hands me a hammer. And I said, Tom, that's not a screwdriver, it's a hammer. And he said, you're putting the screw in. A hammer's the fastest way. Get it done. We got to get off the roof. Sometimes you need to learn how to use the tools to get your job done. Is it a hammer, or is it a screwdriver, or is it the outcome? The outcome was we had to get to safety. So what is it? I learned to take the background tool and make something else with it. We made silhouettes with it. And so what did we do the other day? We did that whole, I took the background out of a rose, put the rose back in its color, put everything else in black and white. All kinds of things came out of that. Do you understand the thought process that goes into that? It's simply problem solving 101. So I wanted to spend the first half of the webinar focusing on problem solving 101. All right. So was that helpful to anybody? I need to get a drink of coffee. Was that helpful to everybody? I get on these little rants once in a while. I don't always know if that's beneficial to you, but I want you to see the value that's there. And that's the reason why. That is the reason why I say this is not intended to be a tutorial. This is an interactive learning process. Ray, I totally agree with you. Problem solvers are the highest paid people on the planet. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Mockzign for just a moment, okay? Yeah, you know, you'll never forget the goose comment. Don't be a goose. Thank you to my dad. Mockzign, a bunch of new templates in Mockzign. I love this. I love the t-shirt template right here with this little child in it. I just think that's amazing. And when you see what I wrote on that t-shirt, you'll understand why. Okay. But I love the new templates, the new mockups in Mockzign. And so I want to share just a little bit with you about using the tool today as we go through this. Now, who remembers what the purpose of a mockup is? Somebody tell me, because you win the battle if you remember what the purpose of a mockup is. It's not to have a mockup. Again, it's the outcome. What's the outcome that you're after when you use a mockup? Anybody remember? It's this. It's the battle for attention. It's the battle for attention. If I want to get attention, I want to use a mock-up. I don't want the focus to be on the design. I want the focus to be on attention. Because if I have attention, I can sell my stuff. If I have attention, I can showcase my skill. If I have attention, it's the battle for attention. I'll get noticed. I'll get my message out. All of the things that you suggested all come when I have the reader's attention. If I can win the battle for attention, and a mock-up can do that. Now, let me show you just an example of this, okay? Here is a mock-up done in Youzign, all right? Kind of a fun little t-shirt design that I've been fiddling with. Find your tribe and love them deeply. All right, find your tribe, love them deeply. That's how many of you like that message? Okay. You know, that the truth is, I've told my wife frequently that the reason why I put this kind of effort into these webinars is because you're my tribe and I love you deeply. Does that make sense to everybody? This is, you know, so I have this t-shirt that I think is pretty cool because it really represents what I want to do, right? Or does this look better? Which one's going to get attention? I like the yellow. I wish I could do the shirt in yellow, but which one's going to get attention? It's the battle for attention. I want to win the battle for attention. I want to get the other person's attention. And this gets attention. The focus is where all of you put the focus a while ago. I don't like the fonts. Guess what? I did that on purpose. I did it on purpose so that you would notice that when you do this, the fonts aren't as big a deal. It's the battle for attention. It's not attention to detail. There's a difference between the battle for attention and causing people to give attention to detail. I just want that to soak in for a moment, because when I'm involved in this battle for attention, I want to focus the attention where it belongs, not here. Does that make sense? I want y'all to get that. We fret over the details instead of using the attention. All right. Okay, let's move to the next thing. When we're going to use Mockzign, and I used Mockzign here to create this mock-up, we have a couple of tools on the platform that can help you, okay? And they're right down here under Mockzign. And we have two layouts, the phone and the desktop. And I'm going to show you that in just a little bit when we move from here to the canvas. But I want to make sure that you understand that we're using Youzign and Mockzign together. They belong together. And I oftentimes I'll initially create the design right here inside of Youzign. Obviously, that's where I did it because of this. But what I want to do is I want to talk about, then we can take that mock-up and I can change the background if I wanted to. I could change the background, put this guy standing in a crowd, standing out from the crowd. Okay. So we use the two tools together. But in order to do that with the mockup, then what do? Okay, I'm going to use my hammer and screwdriver, right? So let's move on to the canvas. I'm going to have to change my screen here. So be patient with me while I do that. Because it takes a moment for this platform to catch the webinar platform to catch up, so I can change my screen. And I have the best. I actually had the best network experience I've ever had when I went live this morning, but we're still having issues. So. Okay, you should see my mock-up screen now, or my Mockzign screen now. Okay, is that what you're seeing? Okay, you should just a couple of housekeeping things. You should see Mockzign 1.0.2 up in this top bar up here. If you need to update, this bell right here should turn red, letting you know that you're operating on a previous version rather than the new version. All right. And then if you run into issues with that, I'll share with you just a little bit how that happened. Okay. I totally agree with you, Eric. Eric says, I really appreciate the perspective shift about how the mockup tool, because the psychology behind using a mockup tool is so much more important than just how you use the tool. Exactly. That's everything I'm trying to share with you today about problem solving, is that you simply use the tools to accomplish the purpose. If my outcome that I was looking for, if my outcome is to get attention, because I need attention. Attention is one of the first things that you have to have in order to make a sale. If I don't have your attention, I will never sell you anything. If I don't have your attention, you will never fall in love with my brand. So I have to have attention first. And in the battle for attention, mock-ups work really, really well, because I'm putting something for real in front of people and they go, yeah, that makes sense. And it takes the focus off of the details and puts it on the reality. And I think that's important. So thank you, Eric. I appreciate you mentioning that. All right. You should see, if you have Mockzign, you should see Mockzign 1.0.2 up in the up in the top of your toolbar. This bell should not be red. It should actually be invisible right now. So let's take a look at this. I brought a really large, this is a really large design because this is a t-shirt design, right? And so Youzign's t-shirt designs are always big, and they're big so that they look good on a t-shirt. And they're at 300 pixels rather than 72 for web. So it's going to fit okay on the t-shirts because that's where it's supposed to go, right? It's going to look okay on the t-shirts. I actually really like this one. I just didn't like the fact that it was in a portrait mode rather than a horizontal, rather than a landscape mode for the because the truth is this looks really cool without knowing what all the words on the shirt are. It says okay, but then you have some obstacles like this. Where you're not necessarily going to be able to read that black writing, okay? And then you have some other things that are going to happen here. Like this just isn't going to look appropriate on a hat. So trying to make this fit in those just doesn't work. So let's go back over here and take a look at, I have this, which doesn't look right. And I've had people actually complain because this looks like this. And they said, well, why? It doesn't look right. Well, it's because you used a portrait layout and tried to put it in a landscape mock-up. Does that make sense to everybody? That's the reason why when you look at in Youzign, when you look in Youzign, it says phone or desktop. Phone goes in this direction, right? Because the phone goes in this direction, it looks different than it does going in this direction. I mean, we should be able to think about the outcome. I'm not going to be able to use a portrait mode in order to do a landscape layout. That just doesn't make sense. In no world does that make sense, right? So we have these designs right here that are all in that same landscape style. And then we have designs like this and like this that are primarily and predominantly portrait style. Absolutely. See, this looks fine. I can do this. This works fine because it's a t-shirt design, and a t-shirt design is portrait. And the cool thing is, Francis, the answer is I haven't had to do anything. I did the design once. It looks fine here. And it looks fine here because it's in portrait mode. And I don't have to do anything. I don't have to make it fit. That's the cool thing about Mockzign. It is a dynamic editor. It brings the design in, and then it makes it fits it appropriately. But that's the reason why it won't fit here. It just looks wrong here. You can't make a portrait design look right here, right? So that's all I really want to talk about that. But that's the reason why you look at the portrait mode or you look at the desktop mode or the phone to determine how the layout's going to be. Now, if I design this for the phone, it's going to look good in these layouts, and it's going to look good in these layouts. All right, because they're in portrait mode. I'm obviously going to make my t-shirt designs in t-shirts, right? But I don't have to worry about fitting it. It's going to fit appropriately if I have used one or the other of those layout designs inside of Youzign. All right, are there any questions about that besides the one I just answered for Francis? Now, we have, as someone has said up here, we have done this, and that is put a recommended size up here. All right, so you'll recognize that there's a recommended size up here so that it's close. But the great thing is dynamic as the editor is, if I'm close, it's going to work. Okay, any other questions before we move off of this? Again, I begin with my end in mind. If I wanted a t-shirt design, then I'm obviously not going to use the desktop, right? Because it's a t-shirt. So I'm not going to use the desktop. Again, I begin my design with the end in mind. You do that over and over and over again. What's my outcome going to be? What am I looking for? No. Mockzign is still a standalone download version, desktop version. You have to be connected to the internet in order to make it work, but that's it. And no, it's not within the Youzign program, but I'm going to take you to the Youzign platform right now, and we're going to talk about how you can make the designs inside the program. A lot of people got really confused by that, and so we're going to try to clean that up just a little bit here, okay? Let me get the other screen that I need, and we're going to do it right now, okay? So hold on just a moment. I got to clear my desktop off a little bit, and we'll be ready to go. Gets a little crowded getting everything up here. So I almost put the wrong screen up. You should be seeing my, do you see my Youzign canvas now? All right, good. So this is what you should be able to see down here at the bottom. Let me readjust a couple of things. When you're looking at your layouts, all right, this is your layout designs over here. When you're looking at your layouts and you go down here and you see Mockzign and you click on Mockzign, you have two options here. You have the phone, the desktop. All right, those are the two layouts I just talked about inside of Mockzign. So if I pick the desktop, it's going to look like this. If I pick over here the phone, it's going to look like this. All right. And this is that portrait mode we were just talking about, and we can do that with the wall hangings, and we can do that with the phone in portrait mode rather than landscape mode, and all those things are there. Okay. Thank you, Carol, for mentioning that. And Gene, thank you for posting that YouTube channel. I appreciate that as well. Yeah, I have nothing to do with that, Ray. I'm just the mouthpiece. That's all. I have nothing to do with that. But here's what we can do. All right. We just understand this and listen. Rather than change the descriptor, how about you just click on it and find out what it looks like? Again, it's one of those things. Don't let that get in the way. All right. So in this layout now, there's things I can do here, and I can do this. And when I do that, I can begin to build my design on top of this. Okay. I have a question for y'all, because I think this is a good question. How many of you are using this texture for your background over here under image, or do you just park over here? How many of you are using this over here? Because I love these. I think this is really a good. There's some really good stuff in here. And I really want to, I want to encourage you to do that. That's the reason why I mentioned it, Gene, because I was concerned that maybe people didn't know that it was there. But there's some really cool stuff that you can use over here. And sometimes you'll see a template and it has this kind of a background to it, and you wonder where that came from. Well, that's what it is. And again, just remember that they're there. Okay. Pete, the Etsy tab, again, I say this all the time. Click on it and find out. You have the shop icon and the cover photo, the two things that you can do in Etsy. All right. Again, just click on it and find out. That's why I created the phrase Clickology. I actually had somebody that sent me a message in the middle of the night one night and said, what happens if I click here? And I said, click there and find out. And he said, well, I just thought it would be easier to ask you. You woke me up to ask me what would happen if you clicked someplace. Not what I wanted you to do. I love you, and I'll do my best to help you. But if all you're going to ask is what happens if I click here, that's the reason why I created Clickology. All right. Yes, there are other programs that are integrated with Youzign. What you'll have to do, Melody, there in the knowledge base, there's some pretty detailed explanation about all of the partners. And my goodness, we did a whole webinar on that one time, just all of the various partners that there were and how they integrated with Youzign. Let me tell you all a shortcut. This is a shortcut. I never use the integrations. Because for me, it is faster to simply download it and upload it, and I don't have to hunt for it. That makes sense? Download it, upload it, delete it. It's done. If I have to save it on Youzign, which I rarely save my designs, I have 480 designs saved in Youzign, but it makes my life easier. It makes my platform more manageable if I just download what I need and move on. Okay? But there are lots of integrations. And if integration is your thing, then that's cool. For me, 3 mouse clicks and I'm ready. I'm rolling. So I take the shortest path, even if it appears to be long. All right. So these are the 2 layouts that I have to make Mockzign work. I'm not integrating into Mockzign from here. What I'm doing instead is I'm creating a design here in the layout so I can download it in the layout that I need and then be able to bring it into Mockzign. Does that make sense? All right, Leah says she doesn't understand the comment. So let's see if we can make this make sense for Leah, because we want this to be as interactive as possible. I've now created this Mockzign design layout like a desktop. All right. Let's do exactly the same thing over here with YouTube. I make this a YouTube thumbnail. Okay. I can't automatically import that into YouTube. What I have to do is I have to download this, and then it becomes my thumbnail or my splash page for YouTube. Does that make sense? Just exactly like doing that over here in Mockzign in the desktop. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to download it, and then I'm going to upload it into my design. Okay? I think there's a lot of confusion about that. But that's the reason why I say this is easier than integrations. Yes, we have a lot of integration partners, and there's been over the years, there's been lots and lots of people who you can actually grab your design from inside of Youzign. I just think that's slow. Personal opinion, I think it's slow. I will be done and having a cup of coffee by the time you get done finding your design in the integration. I may even get in trouble for that, but I just already know that because I do it all day, every day. Okay. Now, a couple of tools that are here for the new people and will help you let's take a look at a couple of things over here. I can reduce the opacity of that background. All right. But here's the cool thing. I've got this set as a background. I can click the replace tool. I can come over here and I can replace it without, again, shortcuts. These shortcuts are powerful. All right. For me, a shortcut's faster than shortcuts to download and upload is 10 times faster than finding it in an integration. Totally agree. The integration, while it sounds good, it's not functionally efficient. And it's not. And I figured that out a long time ago, and it made my life easier because I did. And I try to give you those things without being difficult. Okay. The replace tool is amazing. Let me show you a trick. And I was going to do this last week with the replace tool, and we just simply ran out of time. So let me show you something really cool that you can do with the replace tool. Because if I set this up so that I want to have 6 of these, then what I'm going to do, here's a really quick shortcut to this. If I want 6 of these, exactly that size, but I want 6 different emoticons, what I'm going to do is duplicate this. So now I have 2 of them. I'm going to hit the replace tool. I'm going to come over here and replace it with this one. And it's exactly the same size. All right. Instead of having to adjust it, what I'm doing instead is I'm duplicating it, and then I replace it. And I'm creating them in exactly the same size. How much time does that save you when you do that? I mean, it's amazing what you can do when you, again, this is a masterful tool. And when you learn to master it, it's amazing what you can get done. Especially when you're stuck on a roof and a storm's coming. Pardon my expression. So what we do is, yeah, that's the reason why I do it this way. You know, again, as Stephen's saying, be careful what you, I mean, if you're going to create massive designs and do that like 12 times, you're going to create a problem. Just follow the process that I'm showing you right here. And it's amazing how well that'll work. Okay. Yeah, again, if you're going to do this, if you're going to do what I just did right here, what you want to do is you want to do it with a very, very plain design first. Do these things first, and then build your design around it. Any other questions about this? I mean, I had a guy who had a very complicated design one day, and he had 12 images that needed to go in his layout. All right. And he said, I'm having to shape every single one of them. It's driving me crazy. And I showed him what we just did here with his images. He was done in 2 minutes. But imagine how difficult this is. If I've got to size that exactly the same size as that one, it'll take me forever. Now, occasionally you'll see me do that in the webinar, but this is the shortcut right here. And last week we were talking about using these emoticons, and I forgot to tell you that how easy it is to do this. We just ran out of time, like we're just about to run out of time now. But this is a huge lifesaver. It's a huge time saver. But I wouldn't put a lot of detail into this design in the background first, okay? Now, the reason why I wouldn't, and we're gonna save all of these just like that, and then we're gonna delete them. But the reason why I wouldn't do that, I'd see, does this look familiar? See, this is the exact design that I had earlier, and I saved it as a group. Rather than saving it and then trying to find it, I just saved the elements in it. And I bring them back into my future designs. This was a gigantic t-shirt design, so I had to resize it. All right, any questions that we need to clean up before we wrap up? Try to stay on top of the questions. Carol reminded us to start with a question mark. That way I wouldn't miss them, and I did miss a couple of questions initially because of that. I'll scroll quickly here and see if I see anything else. Oh, the font name? Ha. Again, if I ungroup this, I don't ever know. What I do is sometimes I'll save them as the font, okay? That's that font right there. But oftentimes I'll save them over here as the font that they are, okay? And again, these are fonts that I have saved. All right. But yeah, anytime you see a font that you really like, then the thing to do is just click on the font. And you can click right up here and it'll tell you what the font is. And we've added a whole bunch to this list. If you've not been through this, you need to take a day. or an hour. It won't take a day and it won't take an hour, but you need to take some time and go through here and look at these, because there's been a bunch of them that have been saved. One of my favorites right here, you know, for other things is right there. But if you find some fonts that you really like, then the thing to do is to save them over here in your text area so that you've got that. Gemma, let me address that, because I think that's a really good question. The answer is we do have a grid line right here. I never use it because I get an idea as to where this is at. See the smart line that comes up there and tells me that that's centered. That's about all I'm really looking for. Okay. The hard image is actually in the graphics over here. It was an icon, or it was over here. All right. It was in this elements area. That's it right there. But the fact is that if you're off 6 pixels, nobody's going to know. This was designed to capture attention, not to focus on detail. Forgot how to save as a group? Okay, what you do is you click on your first image, hold down the shift key, click on the second image or the second element, and then you click on the third one, and now it pops up right over here and says group. I hit group and I can save them. Okay. Any other questions before we wrap up? Because we're now at the top of the next hour. So thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to these Fridays. I hope you do too. And we'll be back next Friday, same time, same place, and doing the same kind of thing. So thank you all so much for joining me. You make this a very, very powerful webinar, and I appreciate it. And roll tide. Thank you for the all right. A lot of fun with that. So y'all have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you back. But be sure and share your designs in the group. We look forward to that, and it is very, very valuable to you and to everybody else as well. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.